What are you doing today? My name is Matt. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and usually tell you I'm excited to connect with you today. Honestly, not super pumped about teaching this webinar, but am looking forward to the opportunity to answer a lot of questions you might have and just challenge the way you might be thinking about what we're facing in light of all the coronavirus news that I'm sure you have read. My wife and I were talking about it last night, and there's just so much information, it's confusing. But today we're going to dive in and try to unpack a little bit what this means to you, what it means to your business, and most importantly, as it relates to what we can teach you, what it means for your marketing plan. So we're going to dive into our content today. Is the coronavirus impacting you, your business, and your marketing plan? As we do that, the first thing we want to say is our thoughts, condolences, prayers go out to anybody that is affected by the virus. Maybe you know somebody who has the virus, or maybe you're in quarantine because you came across somebody that has the virus. I don't know anybody that has the virus, but and it's a very rare thing at this stage, but we don't want to make light of that at all. Sometimes we'll use humor to deal with stressful situations in life, but we don't want to make light of this situation. It's definitely a serious thing. Our thoughts and prayers are with anybody who has that. As we unpack today, we're going to look at some facts. You're reading a lot, you're hearing a lot. We're going to talk about how we should be responding from a marketing perspective. We also want to talk about and understand how your business may be affected, but we're not going to get into the medicalness of it. You can read that other places, and honestly, while I love watching Doogie Howser, I'm not Doogie Howser. I'm not a doctor. I can't really tell you anything medically that's going on. All I can really teach you today is really how to prepare and how to communicate through disaster. As an agency, we work with customers from Singapore to Maui, heavily in the United States, and help our customers every year through wildfires out west and hurricanes on the East Coast and the Panhandle and in Florida, flooding throughout the Midwest and other parts of the country that we do work. So all sorts of disasters we have helped our customers through. We're going to lean into a little bit of that data today and tell you some of the things we see. This is a little different in that this disaster isn't localized. This disaster is widespread and affecting really all of us at some level. So it's a little different, but I think there's still a lot we can learn from those opportunities. So that's our plan for today, how we're going to kind of set things up and how hopefully our time together will be beneficial for you to get today. So let's dive into what we're looking at. First, will your business be impacted? And there's a couple questions you really need to ask yourselves, and these are actually questions we ask all of our customers in our marketing onboarding process, or all of our marketing customers at least in our marketing onboarding customer process. And that's, first of all, are you in a drive versus a fly market? That's a really important thing to understand, because there's a lot of thought process that's actually suggesting that vacation destinations who are primarily drive markets might really benefit in this situation. And I'm not talking about benefiting from someone else's loss. Like, let's just talk about the economic reality, not the emotionalness of it. But if you're in a drive market, you might benefit from this. Some of our customers in the Midwest actually had some of their best years coming out of and in the economic recession we faced from 2008 to 2012 or so, because people still wanted to go on vacation. They just couldn't take the big trip. And coming out of that recession, many of those people have actually struggled, many of those businesses have struggled because the big vacation is back on the table. And the fly markets have really been thriving in new ways, and some of the drive markets have been struggling a little bit in this economic boom we've been having in our country, at least in the United States, in the last 5 years or so. That we've been living through this economic cycle. So some important things to understand and unpack there. It could be a big driver for you if you're in a heavy drive market. Also, if you do a lot of conference, wedding, or large group business, talk to many of our customers in the last week who do a lot of this kind of business. And we see this part of the business being affected first, and probably more widely than if you're primarily a leisure destination or do a lot with leisure travelers. So looking at that and understanding, okay, which of these segments do you think you're going to be in? And we're going to talk about some strategies to address each of these things. We're also going to talk about some strategies for our fly market customers and things you need to be leaning into there. And then lastly, who is your customer demographic? Everything we have seen says the advisories are really focused on those over 60 and older, as well as those that are immunocompromised. And I know probably nobody targets the immunocompromised in their marketing strategy, but many of you may have a older population coming to your property, and that may be a big part of your customer demographic. And if it is, you need to be thinking about, okay, how are we going to shift our marketing focus in this time to grow other parts of our customer demographic if that part of our customer base is not traveling as much in this period of time? So some important things to think about. We also need to think about timing. And timing is a really difficult one. I did a lot of research trying to understand what we think from a timing perspective. Talked to several doctors who are involved at the Medical University of South Carolina to try to get an understanding of timing, did additional research on top of that. And I don't want to, again, I'm not a doctor, so I've got to be careful with what I say in the timing of things. But the little information I was able to find predicting what other destinations are seeing from a timing perspective, or other countries are seeing from a timing perspective, everything I've seen says we're going to probably see our peak of cases for this virus between probably March 20th and the end of April. Don't know exactly when, but the hope being that the big scare, that the big risk will have passed by the time many of us get into our peak summer travel season. So again, do your own research on that, but that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that that is true, and that as we get to our peak summer travel season, much of the media news will have gone away. Things kind of have a media cycle that they tend to follow through, and that the media is constantly looking for new news, and we're hoping and believing that we will see this timing of this kind of work out and kind of pass on by as we move through spring, and hopefully they can kind of get things, the scientists and the researchers and so forth can kind of wrap their arms around it, figure it out, and we can move past it before peak summer travel season. So hopefully it's just a spring thing that's going to affect us, and as temperatures come up, we're all in a better place. And from what I've read and from what I understand, the Wuhan province in China, which is kind of ground zero for all this, has already started to see this decline in the virus, and they are on the other side of the peak of it, which is great, and it's in that decline stage now. Whether it stays there or not, we don't know, but everything I've seen is suggesting that. So hopefully that's some good news for us as well. We're a little bit later in the stage of this, but hopefully they've learned some things by now they didn't know in the early stages as well. So will you be affected is an important part of it, and understanding what that means from a marketing perspective, and understanding how long you might need to kind of ride this out from a marketing perspective and think through this from a marketing perspective, both on the good or the bad side of what might come out of this. As we talked about, I think there's some potential economic gains that could come out of this for certain marketplaces. So let's keep moving along here, and let's look at your Google Analytics. This is one of the things that we see as we look at different disasters and understanding, will your business be affected? Every single time that there's any disaster that we have seen or worked with, we are able to go into Google Analytics, and the traffic and e-commerce conversion data really becomes the leading indicator of whether your business will be affected. So let me unpack that a little bit. What that means is that before your revenue is affected, before your bookings are affected, typically we will start to see a decline in traffic inside of analytics, measuring traffic to your website, as well as e-commerce conversion rate. Because as consumer confidence erodes, e-commerce conversion rates decline. So people might still be shopping, but they're not confident, so they're not going to book. That drives e-commerce conversion rate down. After that, people will stop shopping altogether, which drives traffic down. So those are two really important indicators to keep an eye on to understand whether your business is being affected. And honestly, until you start seeing significant movement in those indicators, or significant movement in bookings, but I believe these indicators will come before the booking indicator comes. When you see significant movement in those, that's when you might say, okay, we need to potentially make some changes marketing-wise here. We need to approach things differently. The good news is, across our customer base, we're seeing minor variations in that, which are very natural. We always see minor variations, but we're not seeing significant changes in that. Now, I have seen some industry data, obviously, from the airlines, that are having significant changes in their data related to this. I've seen some other data on the vacation rental side published by Key Data Dashboard that suggested some significant data in this. But across our customer base, which represents about 200 properties from Singapore to Maui, we are not seeing significant data, at least on the US side of what we're doing. Seeing some more significant data on the Europe side of what we're doing. But in the US, which is about where 95% of our customers are, the majority of you are, Not seeing significant data suggesting this yet. Doesn't mean that there won't be, but as of this stage, we're not seeing significant data to suggest that we're having a slowdown related to this, at least in the properties we're working with. But a couple of things I want to note as we do this. We're going to look at this chart here on the screen, because just to kind of prove this point, on this chart, there's two brackets shown. One is a bracket in 2019 that shows Hurricane Dorian, and this is from a customer in the Charleston, greater Charleston area. And what we're looking at here is a strong traffic trend and then an immediate dip that lasts about a 2-week period related to Hurricane Dorian. So Hurricane Dorian stretching right through this period, and then in 2018, Hurricane Florence stretching right through this period. And it's about that same length of dip that we see with Hurricane Dorian. There's a little bit of a steeper dip. It appears to be a little bit of a steeper dip. It's actually because traffic was up a little bit more in 2019 than 2018. But the point being that analytics is indicating and showing what's going on here from a marketing perspective. And we're able to see that, track that from an analytics perspective, and know what's going on with that data. So lean into your analytics. If you're our customer, you can take peace in the fact that we're monitoring this regularly for you. I was connecting with our team all week, monitoring these reports and looking at the data and having these conversations with people. So we're monitoring this regularly for you if you are our customer. If you're not our customer and you're tuned in today, you need to be monitoring this regularly, because this is probably going to be the leading indicator. Now, what we don't know is how long these lags in traffic might last, right? But if we do marketing well, we can shorten that window and we can make that gap or that trough shallower. So that's a really important part of it. Can we avoid a slowdown in travel? You know, probably not. But can we market our way through that effectively to make that shortness not last, or that shallow period not last as long, and to make that shallow period not quite as shallow? Absolutely. That's communication. That's marketing's job to do those kind of things. And that's what we're going to unpack with the rest of our time together. And then lastly, your pace report. You need to be monitoring your pace report on a regular basis to see what that is telling you, because that's the ultimate measure of what's going on inside your business from a bookings perspective. So traffic, e-commerce conversion rate, and those pace reports, 3 really important metrics you need to keep your finger on during this time where there's a little bit of uncertainty going on in the marketplace. All right, so let's, what are we seeing so far? We talked a little bit about that, what we're seeing with our customers so far, the monitoring that we're doing, but we're actually seeing some really good trends. Over this last weekend, our pay-per-click teams shared with me that March 7th and 8th, we actually broke revenue records across our entire portfolio, averaged out, but also in some very extreme cases with customers. We broke revenue and return on ad spend records for many customers this past weekend from a Google Ads perspective. So that's incredibly exciting and shows that despite some of the other data we've seen that said the slowdown actually started occurring before those dates, that we're seeing some record performance in those dates. I talked a little bit about just the minor fluctuations that we're seeing, nothing major in that, and then if you're our customer, we're watching these things actively for you. So all in all, we're not seeing huge impact from this yet. But we need to market our way through this. We need to communicate with our customers through this process as hoteliers and vacation managers and innkeepers. Communication and marketing is going to be the key to who succeeds through this process and who doesn't. All right, so as we do that, let's dive into some ideas for marketing success in these little bit of uncertain times. So let's take a quick look at this. 1, shift your target market. If you've traditionally been a fly market, lean into the drive market. If you've traditionally been a drive market, lean into the drive market in some new and unique ways. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those new and unique ways. But again, if you are a heavy drive market, I think that there's actually a lot of information that would say this could benefit you from a booking perspective. And we've actually seen a decent amount of chatter in some of the Facebook groups and forums that we're a part of that are actually referencing this, where people are seeing other trips are getting canceled and they're changing to a drive market trip and getting last minute bookings from people who are like, well, I'm not going there anymore, so I'm going to go here. So this is really important as part of this. And as you look at how do you lean into a drive market, there's several opportunities to do so. One is the staycation special. Don't need any explanation about that. One is actually, and I don't know that this is a coined term yet, but a work remote-cation. And hopefully none of our Q4 launch team is planning a work remote-cation. But I've heard a lot of chatter about people that are planning to have to, or companies or universities or whatever, that are going to have work remote periods of time. And you have an opportunity to market to people who are, if that happens, to market to people who all of a sudden have the freedom to work from anywhere, so they might as well go somewhere and have a work remote-cation. And unpack that and communicate to those people what that looks like and what that could look like at your property or at your vacation rentals, to really have that work remote-cation. Hey, you've got this extra time where you normally would have been going to your office, come up here and work from the mountains or work from the beach or work from downtown, wherever city you are. So interesting opportunities. Geo-targeting your Google ads is an easy one as well. We do a lot with geo-targeting, and it's very, very successful from us. We have a lot of data that actually shows that geo-targeted ads within 100 miles of many of our properties have the highest e-commerce conversion rates and highest return on ad spend. So there's a lot of opportunities there to lean into some geo-targeting with your Google ads. It gets very technical, so I'm not going to unpack it. I planned to, but I'm not going to unpack it today. But some great opportunities to do there. If you're our customer, know we've already been doing that for you. We may just shift some more of your budget into that area, and if we see this as an important trend to be paying attention to. And if you're not doing Google ads, this may be the time that you actually need to lean into that and say, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to have the same bookings from these other channels that I've had in the past, so I need to lean into some new channels, and Google ads may be one of those new channels. If you're in a fly market, we believe it's an opportunity to advertise price as well. My wife and I are looking at a trip to Costa Rica this summer, and she forwarded me this email from Google Flights, I think about 2 days ago. She said, just, hey, heads up, the flight for the price for our flight to Liberia, Costa Rica just dropped over $100. And while we've all heard the news about the airlines and the struggle they're having, and the opportunity that they're seeing, or the difficulty that they're seeing right now, it's creating opportunity. And I believe it was NBC actually ran an article yesterday about how more millennials are booking flights than ever before because prices are coming down and they're able to book vacations so inexpensively. So that's part of shifting your target market, because flat out, a lot of people just aren't afraid of this. A lot of people are not afraid of this. I think you'll see that mentality and that attitude even more so in the millennial generation. And advertising, if you're in that fly market, leveraging the fact that their vacation just got a lot cheaper. You can come to Jamaica, you can come to Roatan, you can come to Miami, you can come to Hawaii cheaper than you ever could because prices have gone down. And I'm not suggesting, like, take advantage of the airlines' difficult time, but they need to sell tickets. So by you marketing that, you're actually helping them sell those tickets and get those prices out there. And you're helping yourself by people making a vacation they may not have made before. So you can check out that NBC News article, a lot of information about that. But also I would encourage you, pick out some of those top markets people fly to you from and track those prices on a regular basis. And think about incorporating that into your marketing strategy. Touched on targeting the millennial audience there. And if you're heavy in groups and weddings, you've probably already thought about this, but focus on leisure. Many businesses have to be much more conservative than we do as individuals. Many businesses have an incredible responsibility with their employees to be able to think through and make decisions on their behalf, and many of them have announced travel restrictions related to that. But individuals making their own decisions tend to be a lot more cavalier than corporations can be. So we see the leisure market staying much stronger in these times, whereas the corporate, the group, the wedding business, the conference business is probably going to go through a little bit of a difficult stretch here for the next couple months. So lean your marketing into that leisure business if you do a lot of weddings, groups, and so forth. And as part of that, identify those at-risk bookings. Identify those bookings, those conferences, weddings, those at-risk bookings, and start thinking about how are we going to build a leisure marketing plan to fill that gap that we're expecting to have. We're expecting that conference or that wedding to cancel. So how are we going to start thinking and planning marketing for that now, so we're not caught off guard by it when that event actually cancels? All right, number 2, update your website and communication accordingly. I talked about those that communicate well through this period of time will succeed, and those that don't won't. That's just a fact. In the absence of communication, people will make up whatever story they want. So you need to communicate well through this process. We're seeing a lot of brands launching communications, new communication standards. I never thought I'd get an email from Budget Car Rental telling me how they clean their cars, but I did. I got it yesterday. And my wife told me about an email she got from Lowe's telling how they're cleaning the store in light of coronavirus, things I never thought I would be getting. But in the same way, and I know many of our customers have already sent emails like this, but you need to think about communicating your cleaning standards to differentiate yourselves. Many of us, because we're smaller properties, traditionally, that's the audience that we represent, because we're smaller properties, we have a much greater opportunity to provide a unique level of care and cleaning for individual rooms that maybe some of the big box hotels, the budget-friendly hotels don't really have the staff, the resources, the expertise, the training, the budget, any of those things to do. So really focusing on what you do, not suggesting what someone else doesn't do, but focus on what you do from a cleaning standard procedure and communicating that to set people at ease. Include a pop-up on trip insurance as well. I think this is an important thing, but as you do that, you need to make sure that your trip insurance actually covers this. So don't promote it if, hopefully you've already gotten the answer to that question. But if you sell trip insurance or travel insurance, make sure yours covers this type of event. And then if it does, really communicate that on your website, communicate that process. Maybe you don't offer trip insurance, and this is an opportunity for you to start offering that product. There's actually a revenue generating opportunity for you there that you've never tapped into. So check that out as well. Offer free changes, not necessarily cancellations. So I wrote this and then got new information last night from a friend of mine that works in merchant services, which I'll touch briefly on. But free changes, which is what a lot of the airlines are doing, not necessarily free cancellations or letting go of your cancellation policies. For whatever reason, it seems like consumers expect the business or the hotel or the inn to always take it on the chin anytime something bad happens. And I don't know that that's always fair. We all kind of share in that risk together, but free changes can be very effective. The information that I've seen from merchant services, specifically Visa and MasterCard, put out a statement yesterday that they're essentially encouraging anyone to let go of their cancellation policy as far as even no-shows. That if someone even no-shows for a vacation, that you need to refund them their money if it's related to this. And I believe that they'll stand behind that from a chargeback perspective. So somebody no-shows, they charge back, and then the Visa MasterCard will give them that money back, and you'll lose that case every time. So lean into that, ask your merchant services provider what they're hearing. But that's the latest information that I've heard from Visa MasterCard on that. Again, verify that with your merchant service provider. And then understand airlines are great at this approach. They're great at the free change but not cancellation approach. And some of that's not necessarily refusing to cancel, like in light of what I just said about Visa MasterCard, but just understanding that, suggesting, hey, we think this is going to blow over in the next few months, and that's the research we're seeing. So why don't we just change your reservation to a different date, or give you a credit, or give you a voucher, if you will, to spend those 2 nights with us or spend that week with us at a different time. Call us when you're ready to book that. You can definitely suggest that, and many people will take you up on that rather than cancel and expect a refund. So it's a great first step to be proactive with. If someone calls instead of just saying, no, our cancellation policy is this, sorry about you, being able to say, hey, why don't we do this instead? And the power of suggestion can be a really big deal there. Number 3, increase your budgets. And I know this sounds crazy, right? You're like, what? Increase my budget? We're in a difficult time. But let me unpack that for you a little bit. One, earlier I said those that market well in this period of time will succeed through this process. We also believe that this is going to hopefully be a very short window of time in the grand scheme of things. And as we do that, we see an opportunity here to gain market share. Those that market really well through a difficult period of time come out the other end of it with increased market share the majority of the time. So to stop marketing because we're not seeing as many bookings is actually kind of counter of what we really need to be doing. We need to be ramping up our communication, ramping up our marketing during this period of time. And at the same time, if your competitors are having a knee-jerk reaction or a panic reaction, you can actually gain market share in this period of time. So a really important opportunity to lean into doing marketing and doing it well in this period of time. One, from a communication perspective, but 2, if your competitors stop marketing, that is an awesome opportunity for you to look at that. And that's part of what I want to unpack this last weekend to see, did did we see some of our record return on ad spend and record revenue numbers because other people had stopped marketing? Maybe, I don't know yet. I haven't had a chance to unpack that quite yet. But I think that could be part of it. And if that happens in your marketplace, you have an opportunity to increase your return on investment and increase your return on ad spend, because everything we're seeing is people still want to travel. They're just changing the kind of travel that they're doing. We also think that you operating the same way you would any other time you're behind pace is an important way to think about this. So set aside why you're behind pace. Set aside coronavirus, set aside whatever the disaster is, and operate the same way you would any other time you were behind pace. Many of you are tracking your pace reports on a regular basis. You know exactly your game plan for if you're behind pace and what you're going to do about that. And lean into that. Set aside the, whoa, this is scary and new and there's a lot of unknowns, and just think about the fact that, okay, I'm behind pace. This is what I do when I'm behind pace. I'm going to execute on my plan. And get yourself into that foundation of, I've been here before, I have a plan, I'm going to execute my plan. And not get caught up in the panic and everything else that the media is really driving home. So some important things to think about there, but I think also some important opportunities for those of us that may lean into increasing our budgets actually in this time, rather than slashing our budgets in this time, to be able to gain that market share and gain those bookings. And I do believe what I've said several times, and that if you're in a heavy drive market, you may actually see an opportunity to increase business, because people want, people kind of had the winter doldrums. They want to take that spring vacation. They're probably just going to take it somewhere different. And that could really benefit you if they're deciding not to fly somewhere that they may have flown before and instead stay within the drive distance of their home base. So really thinking about that and leaning into that. Next here, the U.S. travel. U.S. travel has a great emergency preparedness and response kit. So there's some information there. There's a URL there on the screen as well. We'll put the URL out for you as well. But there's some great resources in this emergency preparedness kit. Some graphics you can use, some data you can use, some other great resources you can use in your marketing, as well as just educating yourself in general. So that's continually being updated. New information, new content's being published there pretty regularly. So check out that resource, bookmark that, use that as a resource from a marketing perspective and keeping yourself educated. As part of this, I would say don't spend a ton of time in the news and the media. When you spend a ton of time in the news and the media, it just kind of poisons the well a little bit. So really focus on doing what you can control, act on what you can act on. And as we look at that, that's one of the things we want to touch on here. Act, don't react. Act from a place of strategy. Come out of this from a place of strategy, not come into this from a place of reaction, knee-jerk, panic type response. Act from a strategic place. Think through the decisions you're making. Really understand what's going on. Your customers are watching. Your customers are paying attention to what you're doing right now. Your employees are watching. They're paying attention, and they're getting their cues on how they should respond based on how you're responding to this. And it's a key time for your business to really understand what's going on in the marketplace. How are we going to respond to this, and having these conversations now. And lastly there, long-term vision wins over short-term thinking. We believe this is going to be a short-term setback in the travel industry. And as part of that, we need to stay committed to the long-term visions that we have. Long-term vision wins every time over short-term thinking. And if you operate out of a place of short-term thinking, you will do long-term damage to your business. So that's an important consideration in this time as well, that you need to continue to execute on your long-term vision. Do you need to change your marketing approach? Yes, absolutely. Do you need to lean into it in new and unique ways during this period of time? Absolutely. But you need to stay committed to the long-term vision that you have for your plan, for your business, for your customers, for your revenue, and execute on that consistently. That's what's going to drive success for you. So hopefully today was helpful. We shared a lot of information about what's going on, how to really think through this from a marketing and communication perspective. If you want more information, you can request a Google Analytics analysis. We'd be happy to talk to you about that, to connect with you on that, unpack that data for you. You can email us to do that. If you have questions, we have answers as well. Feel free to get in touch with us. We'll do anything we can to answer questions you have. Some we may not have answers for, but any question we can answer for you, we definitely will and want to be a resource for you, our customers, but also for the industry as a whole. So whether you're a customer or not, please let us know how we can help you with this. And if you are a customer, know that we are having a lot of conversation around our office about how to market you well through this process, how to communicate well through this process, monitoring your analytics to track any dips that might be happening, and then knowing how to respond to those things effectively. So I hope this gives you some new ideas, some new hope for your marketing plan, your commitment to the long-term vision for your business that you have, and instead of just getting into that knee-jerk short-term thinking. Let us know how we can be a resource for you. Thank you for tuning in. If this was helpful for you, you can definitely share this video with other people. We're going to leave this recording up a little bit longer than we normally do. So share this recording with other people you know in the industry. Tag us in that, tag them in that. If you have thoughts or comments, please post them on our social media. We'd love to engage you in conversation there as well. You can check us out at facebook.com/Q4Launch and engage us in conversation there, or just communicate with us directly. Our phone number, our email address, our website address, all out there and available for you guys, as we want to be a resource for you through this period of time. Again, thanks for tuning in. We hope the best for you, your family, your business, and we're excited to help you navigate through these turbulent waters that we're facing right now, but believe we're going to come out the other side stronger with our commitment to our long-term mission. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.